People like Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they live in a bubble. They have personal security. They have armed guards around them. They travel in motorcades in armored SUVs. They fly privately. They don't, go to the airport and struggle through the same things that we go through at the airport. They live a different life. And for those people to have the audacity to try and take away the little bit of protection those of us that are normal people have, it's even more appalling. And the Democrat Party has just been overcome by a very small sliver of left-wing thugs, really, that are trying to get the police defunded. And when people like Biden go along with it, and Nancy Pelosi go along with it, and Chuck Schumer go along with it, shame on them. Yeah. Shame on them. It's wrong what's happening. Shame on them.
And it's working. They are defunding, police departments across the country.
And murder's skyrocketing as a result
because of
that.
that. Yeah.
I mean, people aren't safer because of it.
Well, and one thing people don't realize is that the more you defund these departments, the harder it is for them to take care of riots, like what we're seeing in Minneapolis. And so, you could see a direct correlation between that. Andy No talks about this a lot. Portland is kind of the perfect case study where the smaller the police department got, the less officers available, the more Antifa and other groups were just able to just do whatever they wanted because the police can't afford to send units to, respond.
You were talking before I think it was before we went on the air about how Maxine Waters said, get confrontational, get in their faces or whatever. And after that, there was a drive-by targeting some National Guardsmen.
Yes.
And we know that officers have been targeted too. And we know, you guys remember, I think it was last year, we've had this off and on for a few years, really, since the Obama administration. But, you had officers just shot in their cars. Floyd, I love your suggestion of making time when you see somebody going up and saying something to them, and maybe just treating them like you treat vets. I make it a point if I see somebody wearing a Vietnam hat or you don't see many Korean hats anymore, but Desert Storm or anything like that, I try to thank them for their service. I mean, do the same thing when you see somebody with a badge. Do the same thing when you see somebody
Thank
in
you
blue.
for your service.
Thank you for your service. Thanks for putting your life on the line. One of the saddest but most satisfying narratives that has come out of all of this is the defunding of the police, followed by the immediate calls to 911 to get help by the people who have defunded the police. And we've seen it over and over again. And you want to talk about just a complete fraud and really evil. Evil's a good word for it. When you go out to the neighborhoods that these police are supposedly terrorizing, that Democrats say they're terrorizing, those folks want the police more than anybody else does.
The reason a community has an increased police presence is because members of that community are calling police more often. There's more violent crime, there's more whatever, and there's more calls for police presence. It's the community itself that's calling for the police to be there.
Well, and then you have people like Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They live in a bubble. They have personal security. They have armed guards around them. They travel in motorcades in armored SUVs. They fly privately. They don't, go to the airport and struggle through the same things that we go through at the airport. They live a different life. And for those people to have the audacity to try and take away the little bit of protection those of us that are normal people have, it's even more appalling.
And they do it in the name of, African Americans who, the majority of which want more police. They do not want their police to be defunded.
Yeah, and so you take the police, and now they're targeting guns again. You take those away. You make people completely and utterly dependent on the state. And then the state won't show up. They defund the state. They defund the police departments. It is a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe to destabilize the country, to destabilize, I think, metro areas. And the power grab we've seen with COVID, I think, is just a rehearsal for what they want.
People have got to wake up. We can't let this continue. We can't
Yeah.
let it continue.
Yeah.
We're all at risk.
We were talking about this before we went on the air. There are stories out there right now, probably the top 10 stories that the Western Journal's covering right now. Any one of them would have just exploded into the biggest stories of the year 2 years ago. And people just aren't even engaged in them now because it's been so normalized. The
Yeah.
left has so normalized the chaos and the destruction and the danger. And so then I think you and I were talking about this earlier, Michael. The question then is what's next? Because they're not going to
Yeah.
let it stay normal. They're going to keep turning the heat up. So what is the next thing that they do? And I don't know what it is. It's a truly terrifying thought because, how much worse can it get and everyday life still look anything like traditional American life?